Have you ever wondered why some teaching methods just click while others totally fall flat? Well, the answer is hiding in this really fascinating field called educational psychology. It's basically the science that unlocks the secrets of learning, and today we're going to dive into how it can completely change the way we teach and learn. So let's get right into it.
Okay, I want you to think back to your all-time favorite teacher. What made them so amazing? Was it just their passion, their creativity? We often assume that great teaching is just common sense, right? But what if I told you that our intuition, our gut feelings about what works in a classroom can often be, well, just plain wrong? Let's find out why.
Take a quick look at these two horizontal lines. Which one looks longer to you? Now, if you're like most people, you're pointing at the bottom one. But here's the kicker. They are the exact same length. I'm serious. This is called the Mueller-Lyer illusion, and it is a perfect example of how our senses can fool us. And the very same thing happens in education. Our gut feelings about what should work can be just as misleading as this illusion.
So how do we get past our own illusions and separate what works from what doesn't in the classroom? Well, we really have two ways of knowing. We can go with common sense, our personal experience, and intuition, or we can use the power of the scientific method. Now, this isn't about ignoring our intuition, it's about putting it to the test to discover what really helps our students succeed.
This brings us to a really powerful idea, being empirical. It sounds like a fancy word, but it's a super simple concept. It just means letting the evidence, the data, do the talking. So instead of just arguing about which teaching method is better, we can actually test them and see what the data tells us. It's kind of like being a detective for learning, and it's how we make real, measurable progress. So how do we actually do this? How do we use this scientific approach? We follow a really clear, powerful process, the scientific method. Think of it like a roadmap for discovery. We start by observing something, we make a prediction, a good guess, we test it, we figure out what it all means, and then we share what we found. It's this continuous cycle of discovery that gets us closer and closer to the truth about how we learn. And that, right there, is where educational psychology comes in. It's the field that takes all the power of the scientific method and applies it directly to the art of teaching. It's the bridge that connects what we know about the science of learning to what we actually do in the classroom. It's how we can help turn good teachers into truly great ones.
So what is educational psychology exactly? Simply put, it's the science of learning. It's the discipline that helps us understand how our brains work, what motivates us to learn, and how we can design classrooms where every single student can thrive. It's really the key to unlocking every student's potential.
And hey, this isn't just for academics in some far-off university. Nope. Whether you're a teacher on the front lines, a school psychologist, a curriculum designer, or even a parent just trying to help with homework, if you're involved in teaching and learning in any way, educational psychology has something valuable for you. It's all about making a real, tangible difference. Okay, so how do educational psychologists actually uncover all these amazing insights? Well, they have a whole toolkit full of research methods. You can think of them as a team of detectives, where each one has a special skill for solving a different kind of mystery about learning. Let's open up that toolkit and see what's inside.
First up in the toolkit, we have the observers. These are the researchers who use descriptive studies. Their main question is just, what is happening here? They go into classrooms to get a detailed, first-hand look at what's going on. They're kind of like documentary filmmakers, capturing the real complex world of teaching and learning as it unfolds.
Next, we've got the pattern seekers. These researchers use correlational studies to see if two things are related. For instance, they might ask, is there a relationship between how much homework a student does and their test scores? This kind of research can show us some really fascinating connections, but, and this is a big but,
You have to remember the golden rule of all research. Correlation does not equal causation. Let me say that again. Just because two things happen together, it absolutely does not mean that one causes the other. It's like that old saying, the rooster crowing doesn't make the sun come up. To figure out what actually causes what, we need a different tool.
And that's where the experimenters come in. These are the researchers who really get their hands dirty. They use experimental studies to answer the big question, does this cause that? They'll actually introduce a change, like a new teaching strategy, to one group but not another, to see if it makes a difference. This is how we can say with confidence if something is a real game changer.
So you've got these three main tools. How do you know which one to use? Well, it all depends on your question. If you just want to know what's going on, you use a descriptive study. If you're looking for relationships, you use a correlational study. And if you need to know if one thing causes another, you've got to run an experiment.
It's all about using the right tool for the right job.
Okay, so you've done your research and collected all this information. Now what? Well, you use statistics to make sense of it all. Think of it this way. Descriptive statistics are like taking a photo. They summarize the data you have. But inferential statistics are like using that photo to predict what you'll find in the wider world. It's how we go from a study with a small group of students to making big conclusions about learning in general.
So why do we go through all this trouble? All this research, all these statistics, why does it matter? Because at the end of the day, it's not about the numbers. It's about the students. It's about taking what we've learned from the research and using it to build classrooms where every single kid can reach their absolute full potential. That's the payoff.
And that leads us to the ultimate goal, what you might call the holy grail of education, evidence-based practice. The idea is so simple, but it's revolutionary. Instead of just guessing what might work, we use what we know works. It's about trading in old habits and hunches for strategies that have been scientifically proven to make a real, positive difference for students.
Now, educational psychology isn't going to give you a magic wand with all the answers, but it will give you the tools to find those answers for yourself. It's a field that's all about empowering you to be the best teacher, the best parent, the best learner you can possibly be. So the real question is, with these tools in your hand, what are you going to build?
Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive into the fascinating world of educational psychology. Remember, the next time you see a truly great teacher in action, you're not just watching passion and creativity, you're watching science in motion. Until next time, keep learning.